How's it going, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Debate Night. We've got a great one today, kind of back-to-back weeks with slightly controversial topics. So I'm excited to get into it and hear what everybody's takes is on that. Without further ado, let's. Well, first, I do want to say something. Hunter won the People's Champ post,
undefeated, baby.
The poll, rather.
Have I ever been in a People's Champ poll and not won yet?
Yeah. So. Is there a bias going on with the poll?
As in yes, or as in like let's move on? I don't know.
I didn't hear what you said. Wait, what?
Have I been in a People's Champ poll and lost?
I don't think so.
Can you put him in one that he wasn't on the episode and see if he still wins?
That's a good test.
That is going to be the litmus test.
I think he's just getting. What are the kids saying now? Glazing? Is that what the kids are saying? I think that's what's happening after he did the break 68.
Well, here's
maybe
the foreshadowing of this episode is Hannah's locked in for a win. She has the blue spot.
That's the next thing I was going to mention was the third spot has been set. Hannah's in the third spot, so that is the
third
other
spot's
thing.
Undefeated.
This season is all about finding the biases, so we're just one thing at a time. In any case, Brodie is here. Brodie's looking slim.
Yeah. It is crazy. I don't want to ever do this again, though. I do not like being fat. With that being said, last episode was a great episode. Some were kind of like the Mount Rushmore, but we'll see what Hannah and Mike have today. PDGA Mike, don't count out this man. But top comment last week, 11 out of 10 compared to last week. Synergy, sound, and not reading like bots. So shots fired to some maybe. But we'll see. I think this week has potential of being one of the best shows of the season.
It was a good episode. Some were saying the GOAT cast and that some person was Dustin. Dustin proclaimed it.
He called a shot.
He shot the shot there. Hunter is back. People's Champ from last week, allegedly.
Not allegedly. I am the People's Champ from last week. Don't start throwing allegedly on there until you put me in the poll when I'm not on the episode. Then I'll accept the alleged People's Champ. I do want to know how much weight I have to lose for me to hop on here and Trev say Hunter's looking slim.
Wait, was that accurate? Your response? Have you really only lost half a pound in the last year?
No, I have no idea. I haven't.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea.
I was about to say.
That's not
I just
fair
thought that'd be
because
funny.
You had your phase. If you like, just watch a foundation video for like 4 years ago.
Get fat again. Yeah, get fat again.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I can blow up again. That's easy.
I mean,
getting fat's the easy part.
Anybody drops 25 pounds in like a few months, it's gonna draw some reactions. Hannah is here again in the third spot, the pressure cooker.
Yeah, great to be back. Woman of the people. I read all the comments on my last episode. I was straight up roasted, some a little bit fairly, so hopefully it goes better this week. And I'm really excited about these topics and to get into it. So
awesome. And then PDGA Mike is with us once again. Yeah, what do you have to say on behalf of the PDGA?
Well, I was saying before we started, I was a state coordinator at one point and had a PDGA polo, and I couldn't find it. I really wanted to wear it tonight. Hannah, you can do whatever you want. I personally read none of the comments. I find that to be the best for my mental health. So, but yeah, excited. I think these are some great questions.
Do we have a mural behind you? What's going on here?
Yeah. So last week I was hiding in the corner because my wife was painting a mural, and now she's done with it.
Your wife did that?
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah. Pretty sick. It's pretty sick. Yeah.
That's awesome.
We need to get a mural painter, We have a lot of blank walls around here. It's a little, it's very gray. Anyways, well, let's hop right into it. We're not going to waste any time. We're going to get straight into the controversy here. And we're going to talk about hole 18 at Sprinkle Valley. So hole 18 at Sprinkle Valley may have been the most controversial hole in Pro Tour history. Do you think the hole had major design flaws, or could most of the players' struggles be attributed to poor play? What do we think, Brodie?
Well, man, I gotta tell you, seeing everyone cry. Well, not actually,
wow.
But sorry. Maybe wrong choice of words there. But seeing people on social media cry about it, I did not do that on purpose. Sometimes I do. I did not take a jab there on purpose. But seeing people cry about this hole brought such a sweet smile to my face, because not only were players complaining, but fans are complaining, which, let's be honest, disc golf has some of the craziest fans that as soon as they hear someone else have a take on it or their favorite player does poorly on a hole, all of a sudden that hole's terrible. If Kristen would have birdied this hole both days, let's not joke around about it. People would have literally said, hey, get good. Like that's the narrative would have been like, you guys got to get good. But because Kristen did so poorly, all these people are coming out. That's my honest opinion on it. I think the only design flaw was allowing players to just launch, do the Simon Lizotte and just launch it deep of the basket. I think Holland Hanley threw one that like almost hit a spectator that was 100 feet behind the basket. Now, granted, that's a great play by Holland because that's what the hole allowed, but I think that's a design flaw. I don't like people being 100 feet away from the landing zone and being able to advance to a drop zone. But I think we're going to talk about this hole a lot because honestly, a lot of the stuff that I've talked about in disc golf, this hole actually implemented. And I'll go over my time here and you can take points away because I want to emphasize on this. I have played numerous practice rounds with not just the best disc golf players in the world, but also the best golfers in the world. And the one thing that disc golf players never do, and again, I've played with the best, the one thing I've never seen them do in practice rounds is practice from shots and spots that their practice round shot isn't at. Does that make sense? A lot of people, when they do the practice rounds, they throw the shot where it lands. They throw that shot where it lands. The only time I ever see them practice a shot is when they're like, they shank a shot over in the woods or they throw it in the water. They'll throw where everyone else is in the fairway. But never once have I seen them be like, wait, what if I'm like over here and tucked? Wait, what shot do I need to throw here? Golf, they do that all the time. They play from the bunkers. They play from all areas of the green. Is it good over here? Is it bad? Do I need to avoid? What we saw in hole 18 was a lack of preparation from a lot of people. And also we saw too, maybe a skill level that just doesn't exist that needs to exist on the Pro Tour, and that's called touch.
Okay, a lot said there. Hunter, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the question here is, do you think the hole has major design flaws? Major, maybe not, but design flaws, yes. And then the second part, could most of the players' struggles be attributed to poor play? Yes, I think both are true here. I think, honestly, what we didn't get to see is we didn't get to see the design flaws of the hole actually put into the forefront because most of the struggle wasn't happening from the design flaws, but from the poor play. Because I think a lot of it, if a player would have laid up and then everyone was doing what Brodie had mentioned, the Simon Lizotte Music City Open play, where it's just, hey, I'm blasting it past, going to the drop zone, we would have all been talking about this hole was poorly designed. Instead, what we saw was players get to the edge and not be able to get up and down from 190 feet. Really, it's 150 feet to the edge. We'll call it 170 that you have to get on the island. I'm sorry, but from the camera angle and from my knowledge of disc golf, that should be a shot that is capable and routine for players. The only thing that, in my opinion, is making it not is the pressure. And Brodie's point of not practicing that shot with the stress and wind and whatever you want to call it. But nose up, not nose up, whatever it might be, I just don't see a reason that players can't execute that shot, which is what we were seeing. We were seeing players could not execute over and over and over again 170-foot up shot. Uphill, downhill, whatever. I don't think it's crazy to ask people to do that. That wasn't the design flaw. That was players struggling due to poor play. The design flaw would have been what would have been shown if players were just like, screw this thing, I'm blasting it past. So there's definitely something that has to be fixed in the hole, but I don't think that's what we were actually seeing this weekend.
Okay, so Hannah, did you see any further issues with the hole, or are you kind of agreeing with that?
I kind of agree with it. I think overall the hole is great. My issue, though, is the way that the poor play or bad shots were punished. Look, if you look at most other courses on tour, you take a double bogey, a triple, maybe a quad. Whereas in hole 18's case with the FPO, a quad bogey was almost an okay score because 19 FPO players shot double digits on that hole. So in my opinion, it's just too punishing for bad shots. Mint Discs also had posted a statement on Reddit talking about how they wanted it to be so challenging and they wanted par to be a good score even in MPO, but there were complaints about this hole last year at US Women's. So the fact that it played even harder this year because they made it harder, I'm kind of scratching my head at that one. I think the hole can be great though, and I love the course. I just think they need to adjust some things. If the hazard of the stair area is not safe to play per their statement, then take out some of the OB, make the island bigger. Like there has to be something that makes it more obtainable for the best in the world. And a quick note is Gannon Burr was on Staggered Stance this week, and he talked about how even for 6'3" himself, he struggled to see the basket from the layup zone. Holland Hanley and Ella Hansen both thought that majority of the field wouldn't be able to play to the basket or the island in the windy conditions. So to me, it's too hard for them, and it's too punishing for the bad shots.
Did the baskets move during the round? I didn't know they were moving.
The basket didn't move.
Oh, it was in the same spot that everyone knew it was at? Oh, okay.
It was certainly punishing with the stroke and distance penalties. No doubt about that. Mike, what were your thoughts on hole 18?
This really brought me back. It reminded me of GBO or DDO in 2022 because it just reminds me that disc golfers don't know how to golf. They know how to throw to a basket, but they don't know how to golf. I watched the Jomez for FPO, and Hot Geese made a comment that I was just shocked by, and someone was just short of the island and hit the front railroad tire, and they made a comment, see, that's why this hole is bad. That's in the bullseye of the basket. That's a good shot. And it just blew my mind that people are so insistent on you have to go right at the basket. Like, it's okay to see a green and know, okay, I should err on the side of caution, land on the back side of the screen. And it's funny, Hunter and Brodie mentioned the one design flaw of this hole made it easier, but no one took advantage of it. I watched Sarah Holcomb fluff 4 sidearms because it appeared she was trying to drop it right on top of the basket instead of throwing it harder, maybe going OB. But if you do, it's fine because then you just have a layup and tap in. Instead of a 14, you get a 7. And I do want to say, for the men, I think it was fine. For the women, I do want to say, I do think there was a little bit of blame on the TDs, just because for the U.S. women's, this hole with no island, the Valley was in bounds. It was 1.6 strokes over par last year. So to make it even harder, they knew this was going to happen, or you would imagine they'd know it was going to happen. And so I just think you need a little bit more creativity to like not have, if you wanted this optically, you got it. But if they're apologizing, I mean, what did they think was going to happen if they made a hole that much harder? And I think the last thing is you need to be more creative on how to make these holes different for men and women, because if you watch coverage, the women had about 160 foot closer tee box, but their drives were landing in the same place. So at that point, you're both playing a par 4 that's basically the same. And so there just needs to be more creativity in making these holes easier or harder for people.
Yeah, there was definitely some. Yeah, go ahead, Brodie.
I was just gonna add something to Hannah's point too. I think if we look at this hole, because the way I'm talking about it was like individually. If I just looked at this hole and was like, is this a good hole? I think it's a great hole. But to Hannah's point, I think what really kind of set some people off, and this is, I completely understand with this side of it, is it is far too demanding compared to every other hole. What I would like to see is like 10 holes like this on the course, and then like the other 8 holes a little bit easier. If you had that, all of a sudden now, guys, you got the disc golf that I've been looking for, where it's like no hole can you just take a break and, like the Hot Geese people say, throw the disc and be close to the basket and assume that's a birdie. No, you have to be landing. This is the first hole that we've seen in a while that made players have to be very cautious on where not only their drive, but their second and third shot land. It was demanding on all 3 shots. And if you took a shot off, or you weren't focused, or you threw a bad shot on your tee shot, if you're on the left side of that tee shot, you had a much harder second shot into the basket or into the landing zone for the second shot. Like, I just think because this is so drastically different, I think that's why it's standing out. But I hope that disc golf people that are actually in charge of making holes don't look at the backlash from the minority and say, oh, no, let's just go back to disc golf where everyone's, I mean, heck, the winner still shot on MPO. The winner still, I mean, I know there's an FPO question, but the winner still shot, 30 plus under par? I mean, it's not like these courses are super hard. You know, they're still birding almost half the holes every day. So, yeah, I hope we go more in this direction to where it's not like, holy cow, this hole stands out, and more like, no, these are like what good disc golf holes are in the future. Like, you actually, like Mike was saying, you actually have to play golf. You can't just throw shots.
What I'd be curious is like if this hole didn't exist and you took the top FPO players in the world, right? They are the best in the world at what they do. And I sat each of them down individually and I said, hey, if I had you 150 feet out and you had to throw up over a hill onto an island that is 45 by 40, how many of 10 shots do you think you're getting in there? And they would probably all go 150 feet. I'm probably making 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10 onto that island. It's a big island. Like, I feel like if you look at that shot objectively, we're talking about the best players in the world from 150 feet away. Like, I'm sorry, there shouldn't be that much I can put in your way that's stopping you from getting to that island in some way, shape, or form. So that's where like it kind of falls apart to me. Is like, I get it's a little nose up. I get all of it. I get it's more windy than I could see on coverage, but I step back and I go, these are the best players in the world, and they are 150 feet out from a 40 by 45 foot island.
Unfortunately,
I'd like to believe they could hit it.
Right. Unfortunately, to Brodie's point, as far as like, will they change it? I think most
They definitely
fans
will.
Well, you're right, because most fans, I think, did like it, but the players majority hated it, and the TD is going to be sensitive to the players, right? They're trying to be, good for the players. That's what they care about at the end of the day. So,
but the players, the thing is, the players hate it for the wrong reasons.
I agree, but it's not going to stop it from happening.
The players that are saying, "Hey, listen, we need more holes like that, so that way, if I play poorly on this hole, I don't lose the tournament. There's more holes that other people can play poorly, so it evens itself out." It's the same thing at USDGC, but the difference with USDGC hole 17 is like hole 18 is very difficult. Hole 16's hard. Hole 15's hard. If you look at that course, hole 4 is hard.
It is really funny that people worship hole 17 and then they were hating on this one.
Well, it's because a lot of the holes at USDGC you can take a double.
Right.
What hole is it? 12 or 13, where we've seen like Nico just throw like 7 shots in a row, not getting it on the island or on that like little peninsula. OB, like there is it 10? It's from the Coliseum, par 4.
From the Coliseum is 14's down, par 4 is 13 along the side. From the top of the Coliseum?
Yeah, you're throwing from down the 12. Coliseum, it's a par 4.
The one where you're in the drop zone, you get stuck
12.
there.
Yeah, we've seen people there take 8s, 9s, 10s. We've seen people on the par 4 that's drivable also take big numbers. That's the difference, is because on USDGC, like every hole you could have a blow up hole.
It's the identity there.
And so like there, I'm fine if players like, listen, we need more hard holes like this. Then I'm good. But if they're like, hey, get rid of this hole because it's too hard. No. That's the wrong way.
The one thing for me is I'd be really curious to have a conversation with whether FPO, MPO, or just a fan who in the past has said we want courses to be harder. We don't want scoring to be so good. We don't have a ton of ways to make disc golf harder. This is really the only way. Have pins in difficult situations where you have to make decisions. Have options, either lay up or go for something in precarious positions. Like, this is really the only way to make greens difficult and make disc golf harder. So if people said they want it harder and now they're complaining about this, I'd like to know what they want to do to make it harder.
And I think it's hilarious because people were tagging me about when the hole came out and saying like forced carry, because I've always said forced carry is what needs to happen in disc golf. And it's just hilarious how you have one hole that requires a forced carry and everyone just freaks out. And it's like, imagine if every hole had that, of where you were requiring to actually throw not just left to right, but also short and long. Like, you have to, it's just whenever we have a hole that you requires both, people are like, this is way too hard of a sport. It's like, what? It's in your hand. You don't even have an object slapping something. It's in your hand.
Disc golf. It's in your hand.
Yeah,
just imagine someone throwing a football and being like, wait, you want me to throw it in between these two pillars and land it right there? That seems impossible. It's like you're throwing it in your hand. No one's guarding you.
Yeah, I think that's part of why it seemed so hard or played so hard, is because it was so shocking compared to the rest of the course. Yeah. I mean, it had like the percentage of OB strokes it had compared to the rest of the course is massive. But I've also heard it compared several times to hole 17 at USDGC, and statistically, it's not even close. And I think it's because, like Brodie was just saying, USDGC, there's other holes that can play just as hard or also lead to big numbers. Whereas at Sprinkle Valley, at Sprinkle Valley, there wasn't that.
Yeah, because they at the end of the day, it definitely ruffled some feathers. But that hole was
I
like a
love it.
jump scare. When you were going through the rest of the course, and then you get to 18, you're like, whoa, what is that? Like
I kind of loved it because the player would be like through 17, have a great round. I'd be like, let's see if they can hold on.
yeah.
I was just thinking how sick it would be when like Holland and Kristen were kind of going back and forth, and neither one seemed to want to win. I was like, could you imagine if this was going down a sprinkle and they had to play 18?
A spectacle.
That's what would have been in hole 18 over at Harvey's actually a great finishing hole too.
Yeah.
But that just shows you how great of a hole this could be and how great disc golf can be if they had more holes like this throughout the course. Because you're like, holy crap, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Anyways, well, let's talk about that FPO finish. So FPO had a rather sloppy finish with Kristen and Holland somewhat crashing to the finish line. Is it finally time to admit the courses must be made easier to bring more of the field into play and create a more impressive product? I bring this topic up at least once a year. It seems like nobody has really sided with me, but I think Hunter's tune has perhaps changed. So let's hear from him.
Well, I unfortunately, Trevor, I do have to disagree with you slightly, mainly on the wording of the question. Create a more impressive product? No. Create a more consistent product? Yes. Here's my logic here, right? Let's just imagine that final round at Harvey Pinnock goes down. Holland slips up, loses like 6 strokes like she did across a few holes. And now, instead of it being a hot potato back and forth, it's an absolute shootout where they're birdieing every hole left and right. In those type of situations, which we've seen in FPO before, where players are actually dueling, they're hitting clutch putts, they're throwing incredible shots, we get to the end of that and we're like, that was an instant classic. We don't give 2 rips about where the rest of the field was in relation to them. We just are so impressed by the disc golf we watch. It's when this happens that we then discover, oh, this is why it's a bad idea to only have 2 players that could possibly win this, because if both of them have a little bit of an off day, it makes the entire product look bad. So that's where I'm saying it needs to be a more impressive product, but I think it would make a more consistent product because it would bring more of the field in, giving a more opportunity for someone to be on that day. So when 1 or 2 players slip, there's someone else to fill in. And then instead of it being, then Kristen and Holland would have been slipping and falling. And instead of it being like, well, there's no way they fall to 3rd place, they would have been in 4th, 5th. Like AB we saw on the final day fell out of the top 10. I believe it was the top 10. I might be thinking of Paul, but he fell way down because there was someone there to take his place. So I think that's more what it is. It creates a more consistent product by bringing more of the field in and allowing them to compete, which creates a more exciting product, but not necessarily more impressive.
Okay. Yeah. That's a logical thinking there. Hannah, what do you think of that idea?
Yeah, have a similar thought as Hunter. I don't necessarily think it's more impressive, but it's the consistency. And the final round, that just kind of looked like survival and trying to get over the mental trauma of Sprinkle Valley. I mean, Holland felt kind of like she was bullseye or blunder, but then Kristen was a little bit off too, and she wasn't able to fully take advantage of that. But no, Trevor, I agree. I think the courses definitely should be easier for FPO. And we've heard FPO complain about that through the years, but I don't think that the change or the space in the field, the gap between like the top 10 and everybody else, I don't think it's fully based on skill. I think it's the top 10 is just more consistent. But like Hunter said, when the top 10, Holland, Kristen, whoever, have a bad day, they're still the top 10 because nobody else can quite meet them on these courses or some of these harder tracks. So if we're making courses easier for FPO or bringing FPO into the design process or doing more than just changing par or tee pad location, it closes that gap a little bit and it gives people more of the mindset of, hey, I might be able to compete today with the Kristens of the world or with the Scoggins or whoever, because the course feels more fair across the board. And I also want to point out, though, that although the final round felt sloppy, even on a bad day, we could still see incredible moments because Kristen Lott, she almost overcame an 8-stroke deficit to win or push to a playoff.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, definitely almost had the comeback. We've seen that story a few times. It's just a matter of how much can be credited to skill versus Holland just kind of messing up a bunch of times. I don't know. Mike, what do you think? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Obviously, making courses easier would help a little, but I don't think it'd help as much as everybody's thinking it would. I mean, Kristen didn't play Waco this year. She played it last year, and that's known as like an easier course, wacky Waco. Everyone's in the mix. She passed the field by 7 strokes, and changing courses and making them easier isn't going to make mental mistakes go away. Holland birdied every hole on the back 9 round 3. She shot 9 down on round 3 on the back 9, and on round 4 she shot 1 over. And it wasn't because she was making, the long shots were just barely going out of bounds and the course was just a little bit too difficult for her. It was because she was airballing 15-foot putts. She was hitting a tree 10 feet in front of her on easy up shots. It doesn't really have anything to do with how hard the course was, because it was obvious that she could handle the other course. And other people too. I mean, there were people who shot 7 under the round 3 and then 4 over round 4. So it's just the consistency. And I don't know that the gap would really change. All the scores would be better, but they'd all be better and the gap would still exist. I mean, and it's not as simple as making them shorter. Owen's in the bottom quarter of FPO players for distance. That's being gracious, I think. And she does just fine because she doesn't make a ton of mental mistakes. And you can't make a 15-foot putt easier no matter how easy the course is. You can't make a wide open 140-foot approach shot easier no matter how easy the course is. And so there are some design things we could do, but I think we just have to accept that this is kind of the field right now. And there's just going to be a lot of eyesores and mistakes that we don't want to see.
All right, fair enough, Brodie. Is there any hope making the course easier? Do you kind of agree with Mike there?
Well, you remember I told you guys I thought I got hacked, or I was trying to get hacked by a scammer a couple of weeks ago. I'm worrying it might be actually PGJ Mike, because literally the one note I had on this question is, how do you make a 15-foot putt easier? That was, and he had that at the very end. But I mean, that's very true. I mean, we've seen not just, a handful of FPO players struggle inside of 20 feet. We've seen numerous ones. And not just random, we're talking about world champions as well. So that's first and foremost. You can't do anything unless you make the basket even bigger. And then that's just going to look even weirder than it already does. And I think, too, the big thing here for me is when people are watching something, they want to watch something for 2 reasons. One, either they can relate to it, right? And they have some sort of connection to it, whether it's a relative, family member, or something like that. Or they want to watch something that they can't do. They want to see something that, wow, that impresses me. That's something I struggle with, and that person just did it. And I think if you make these courses easier, I'm just thinking like, okay, the FPO plays Dash's track next week. I don't see how that really all is that entertaining on an ongoing basis, because no one's really pulling off impressive shots. It's more just who's not messing up versus, wow, that was an impressive shot. And I think that's the big thing is, like, I think right now what the FPO needs is just more players. Because if I would tell you right now, we're 3 events in, right? If I told you right now, Gannon, Ricky, Calvin, Isaac, and AB would not have a win to start in the first 3 events, I don't think any of you guys are taking that. And that just shows you MPO, there's so many more people that can win than an FPO. And like you guys were saying, when Kristen or Holland has a bad final round, someone is there. I mean, I looked some of the leaderboards of girls that I thought were really going to step up this year. I mean, they're 30 over par. And I was thinking in my head, like, this is potentially a top 5 player this year. They're 30 over par.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there is always, the idea that, hey, if the field was triple what it is right now, like if we had triple the players, then sure, there would be a lot more. Like that's undeniable for sure.
Think of Eagle and Simon, who are 2 really good players in MPO. Yeah. Imagine if interchange Eagle and Simon with Holland and Kristen. Eagle and Simon missed the cut.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're not Holland and Kristen in the MPO, but they're not that far off for like skill level as far as being at the top there. Both of them are top 10 players, top 12 maybe.
Yeah.
No, it just shows you.
The numbers definitely do not help it at all. And it might be something that might be a problem that just wouldn't really be nearly as prevalent if that were the case.
Correct.
Do we think about switching MPO to marksman baskets and leaving FPO normal baskets? So we make the MPO putting harder, more consistent product across the board.
Love it.
How does that change FPO?
It just makes the MPO putting harder.
So it makes it like
fine
more
with doing
consistent.
That.
Yeah.
So then it's like it's more consistent. Like everyone's struggling on a 30-footer now.
Yeah. It's a point. It's a valid point.
Something to think about.
Smaller
Well,
basket.
like every other sport, there's different equipment. Closer 3-point line, smaller ball. Disc golf, it's all the
they
same.
have shorter tees, Hunt.
Yeah, but I'm saying when it comes to like basket size,
Wait a
basket
second.
size and the basket size and the disc size.
Right, but like in
I
basketball,
still-
they don't.
We don't have enough data, but I feel like there's got to be a correlation to hand size and RPM and hand size and putting.
But in golf,
Owen Scoggins is 4 feet tall and has the smallest hands ever, and she's the best putter.
a
Yeah.
5 foot,
Mike.
a 5'9"
Yeah.
male golfer and a 5'9" female golfer are using the same length club.
Yeah, but they have the club is in between them and like I'm saying, I wonder if like you could generate more RPM because Owen's putt, it goes in, but it's wobbly. If it was like a
goes in.
smaller
I know.
disc.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying if you're the same size, you're not changing your equipment
Sure.
for golf.
So it's like Emerson Keith or Manabu Kajiyama
Yeah.
in disc golf.
Well,
Yeah.
I know, like, maybe you were serious about the marksmans, but like, I don't think
Not
making
really.
making the men worse. Like, maybe make the basket bigger for women. I don't know.
Sometimes
But,
you got to
like,
go backwards to go forward, Mike.
I just really don't think I don't think the difficulty of course matters that much when Henna Blomroos is 21 strokes gained from tee to green and she loses by 20 strokes. Like, there's
Also,
something else going on.
I also
Heck
have to assume too, like Kristen did not like how she was portrayed after this week. I have to assume she's going to work on that shot. She's going to be more prepared next time. And so you start making the
There
course.
won't be a next
There
time.
won't be. They're not playing that hole
Okay,
again.
whatever.
ever.
My point is though, is if you continue to make FPO, you continue to nerf courses to make FPO easier and easier and easier, no one's going to practice to get better.
Yeah, that's always been my argument.
Listen,
That's
man,
always
we've
been
been
my
saying
argument.
that for years, though.
That's how it is though, until
Well, yeah,
someone
but
else
at what
comes.
point is Evelina going to start making 15 footers? Like you only get
Never.
so many years.
When we make the basket bigger.
But again,
When
no,
we make the basket bigger and disc
no,
smaller.
but Hunter, my point is 10, 15 years from now, if there's 20 or 30 Holland Hanleys,
Sure.
well, she also airballed a 15-footer, but if there's 20 or 30 people that are playing at a high level, Evelina doesn't all of a sudden just win tournaments or finish in the top 5.
Yeah. It's just
You know what
more
I'm
so
saying? Like-
troubling when there doesn't seem to be good player. I mean, Holland Hanley is relatively new on the scene, but there doesn't seem to be an ample amount of young
I think
players.
she started playing in
feeding-
2021. She's
Right.
very
Like,
new.
she's an example, but our core of that division isn't really seeming to get a huge influx of players each year. So I think that's what does it for me is like I don't feel like I'm seeing young players push the top.
Well,
consistently.
Trevor, having, again, if you want to call me sexist or whatever, massage, I don't know what the word is if you want to come
Can't wait
after
for
me.
this take.
Here comes the statement.
But if you're female and you're traveling around the United States by yourself, it's not normally a super attractive position, is what I'll say for most females.
Hey, there's a buck to be made out there, though.
Sure, but I'm
Missy
still
Gannon,
saying
well
though,
off.
it's not as easy as being a guy being like, I'm just gonna sleep in my car and drive
Most
around.
certainly.
It's a
Most
lot.
certainly.
It's a lot.
I
feel like that
Hannah,
was the
if you want
opposite
to
of
bounce in,
misogynist.
Hannah,
I don't know.
You are a misogynist.
I
though.
don't. I'm sure some of you can call me in, but I think that does have to do something with it. I don't know if that's a super attractive position to a lot of single females out there.
Sure isn't.
I didn't have time to
As-
mention this.
Are we
but
gonna
I
let
think
Hannah
one-
talk
Hey,
on this?
Hannah, I want Hannah to hear Hannah's point.
I was just going to say that as a female in her 20s, that is not something that I would ever want to do for a career, no matter how much money was in it. There is just too much uncertainty, instability, and I know self-defense, but doesn't mean I want to use it kind of a
You
thing.
honestly
So
would probably have to get like a terrible relationship with one of the guys on tour. like no, thinking about it.
There's the misogyny.
No, it's not. She just said.
Brody's joking. Brody's joking, but if you like,
No, Hannah, if you were married, Hannah, if you were married and your husband was like, "Yeah, let's go," you'd probably
Or on
feel more.
tour.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Let's go, or on tour, you'd
Oh.
feel more comfortable.
yeah, no, if I was like on tour all the time and my husband was with me, I would do it
Yeah,
all
exactly.
day.
So if you
I would
didn't have
not
a
do
hus-
it single and alone.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if you
Big
were
pro-
single, you're probably gonna get a terrible kid that has no idea any life experiences or how to do laundry, and you're gonna now have that relationship. I'm being real. PJ Mike knows what's up.
The big problem is the only way to make the courses, if we were talking about let's make the courses easier, it would probably have to be on completely different courses, not altered ones, which
Yeah.
means a different tour, and you can't have them split up. It's not
Correct.
financially going to work.
It's a different can of worms.
That would also
all
destroy the Pro Tour currently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. So Nicholas Antela was able to defend his title in Austin, not a feat many have accomplished in recent years. Since he is not a serial winner by any means, what makes him click so well at this venue? Is there something to pick up on with both him and Kyle, who each saw success this year and last, or is it merely coincidence? Hannah, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this question fully gives Nicholas the credit that he's due. I mean, he won this event 2 years in a row, and like that is massive. Whether he wins a bunch other times or not. I will say though, I think what helps him mostly at this course is he's got really smooth lines and his rollers. I believe he threw like 8 or something like that rollers this weekend. But I think largely his success is just attributed to his consistency and his overall growth as a player. If we look at his stats for last season, he finished in 17 Pro Tour events. He had 4 podiums, 9 top 10s, and he went for the majors second, sixth, and seventh to finish third in the Pro Tour points. So his 2024 season was overshadowed by what Gannon did and what Ricky did and AB, but he's still a top 5 player in my book, and I think he can get himself in contention at just about any tournament. But those skills that he put into Harvey Pinnock last year served him well again this year, whatever formula he came up with. And he was just able to apply that to Sprinkle Valley, too. We saw a similar thing with Kyle. He had a similar season last year, 2 podiums. He had 9 top 10s out of 18 events played. And although Kyle's had noticeable putting issues in the final 2 rounds this weekend, he was still putting at what his average was for last year's Open at Austin as well. And I think they've both found similar success at USDGC, which to me feels a little bit similar in what this course requires. So I think that it just comes down to their consistency and their course management of tracks like this. And I think they kind of push each other a little bit as teammates. And I really enjoy watching them battle.
Yeah, definitely 2 kind of under the radar players, no doubt about that. Mike, what do you think about Kyle and Niklas?
So with adding the second course, I don't know how much you can just call it due to the venue. Kyle actually shot significantly better at the new course and fell back on the field, and specifically Antela on the course they played last year. So specifically for Antela, I think that it's just more of his style of play is suited for 4-round events and majors. And if he wasn't in the top 3 for birdies this week, but he was number 1 in bogey percentage, meaning least amount of bogeys. And so obviously someone who's a little bit more consistent, makes less mistakes, maybe not just on birdie fest all the time. The more rounds you have, the better. So I went back and looked to see if this would be the case, and the numbers do line up. In 3-round of events in his career, 3-round events, he's averaging 26th on an average finish, which I was actually quite surprised. That seemed kind of low, but when you just do majors and plus events, which would be tournaments with 4 rounds, he bumps up to 17th place. So a 9-spot jump from 4-round events to 3-round events. And I think that just goes to show he's not the most flashy player, but he doesn't make a ton of mistakes. And when his putting's doing well, he can have his success in these tournaments. So when they're birdie fest and sprints to the finish, he doesn't do quite as well. But when it's something that you can just kind of go and just have solid rounds every single round, I think those suit him better.
Yeah, really interesting point there. I didn't really consider that. Brodie, is that kind of what you're thinking? Does that line up?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, these aren't the hardest courses in the world still, because we're still dealing with winners that are, averaging close to 9 under, I think it was, per round. But I do think when it comes to Niklas, especially with his playing style, I think Mike nailed it on the head. Like, the harder the courses, the harder the conditions comparative to what they usually play on tour, the better it is for him. I think it knocks out a lot of people, and I think he kind of elevates his game to that. The other thing is, like, I don't know if there's a person on the planet that throws that putter, that overstable putter flex shot better than him. There's so many holes too that I was watching him where that was like the ideal shot. People are trying to throw flip up putter shots, which were a lot more tricky, especially into the wind. Hole 18 at Sprinkle Valley, like, if you put yourself in the right position, that was the ideal shot. It was just a little flex backhand. I think he almost like made it too on one of the rounds that I watched. So I think when it comes to him, he's definitely a top 10 player. So it's not surprising. I think he also is starting to get a little bit more confidence. He probably felt a little bit good. He also talked about the crowd too, and saying how he felt like the crowd was rooting for him. And so we're starting to see people maybe play a little bit into the crowd. So I think that helped him. And I think Kyle, He definitely gets overlooked a lot. I think he's probably the best player that no one really ever talks about and people kind of forget. So it's not surprising to see him also play well here.
Yeah, tough scene for Kyle having teammates Gannon and Nicholas right now. Not an easy gig.
Well, before it was Simon and Eagle too. So
yeah, he's been in a tough spot this whole time. Hunter, wrap it up for us.
Well, I think that Nicholas and Kyle might just be the Finnish and American versions of each other in that they're both disgustingly good and everyone forgets how good they are because you go back and look at their seasons historically and they have finishes that I'm like, I had no idea Nicholas Antila came in second at Champions Cup when Andrew Presnell won because they just get overshadowed, right? They're baby-faced assassins out there representing dynamic discs, and they just get overshadowed left and right. I think what it is, though, is them, and I throw them into a group of several other players that are like this, where they're streaky. And when they're at their best and when they're really confident throwing the disc well, very few can beat them. And I think that's what we kind of saw this week. I mean, watching Nicholas pipe hole 18 over and over, it felt like the dude was just never going to mess up on it. It was incredible to watch the type of control he had. And I think they're good at those landing zone, walk out and place a disc where you want it when they're on. So I think more so than what it is about this course, because Mike brings up a great point of they're playing two different courses. It's not the same as last year. More so what it is that type of play when you're a streaky player is all about confidence. Isaac Robinson before Worlds this year, his whole group knew he was winning Worlds. Why? He's like that. He's a streaky player that when his confidence is high, he can go out there and light up a field like no one else. His confidence was high. He felt good going to that weekend. What happened? He won back-to-back Worlds. I think that's what's going on in play here is both of them. One won it, the other had a shot, played very solid at this event last year. So they were coming into this event already with a confidence that then increased their performance on courses that also line up with what they're best at when their game's at its best.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously Kyle, he gets overlooked a bunch, but guy's a major champion. So at the end of the day, he's got that to kind of hang his hat on, and should be a lot more coming from those two guys in the future. They're a lot of fun to watch when they're on, for sure. All right. Moving into our final topic here for our finals, we've got another one talking about the Plus event. So this is our first Plus event of the season. Do you feel that the Plus event effectively creates a better and more exciting tournament experience as a viewer? Is there any point to 4-day events at all outside of majors? Mike, what do you think?
So I do think it creates a better and more exciting, more prestigious event, but not because they put Plus next to it. I'm okay with these 4-day events as long as there's two courses. To me, winning an event with multiple courses is always more difficult, more prestigious, more meaningful. Especially if there are two courses that do something different, like a wooded and an open course. At this level, playing a course just one time for an event, to me, doesn't make a ton of sense. Kind of a waste of a practice day and doesn't really show who's better at that course. So if you're going to have two courses, to me, you just have to have 4 rounds. And like I said, the Elite Plus title itself doesn't make it more prestigious. The $2,000 extra to first doesn't really matter that much. But I do think the fact they give them extra points for it is significant, adds some pressure, makes it more exciting. And I think they should get more points for it if there's two courses because it is more difficult to win. And I do think one other good thing about 4-round events is what happened with Antila. Like I said before, he's much better historically on these 4-day events. And it's not just him. While you would think that an extra round would just lengthen the gap between players, what it ends up doing is allows these players who aren't birdie or die, super aggressive, do or die players have a better chance of winning. And so it brings people who we wouldn't normally see win into the mix. And we've seen that in these 4-round events, and we've seen them in majors, which are 4 more rounds too. So I like the 4-round events, giving the caveat that there's at least two courses.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Mike is a fan of the 4-round events. Brodie, what do you think? Is there a lot of sense to these Plus events?
The Plus events in the sense of I don't know. I don't think if you're watching it, you're like, oh, this is a Plus event. There's also something that golf has struggled with as well. And I think the Plus event is something that Disc Golf Pro Tour got from golf. And I think it's one of those things that they probably shouldn't have adopted from golf because no one cares in golf when they have these elevated events. And I think it's the same thing here. Is there any harm in it? No. I don't think anyone's like, oh, it's a Plus event, this is hurting anything. So you can call it whatever you want. I just don't think there's a reason to do it. I also think maybe down the line when money maybe isn't such an issue, most events are going to be 4 rounds. And like Mike was saying, for those courses or tournaments that are notoriously at one event, for example, like a Maple Hill, let's move the tee pads. Let's move the baskets. Let's not have 4 rounds back to back to back. Let's have it to where Saturday someone can go out at Maple Hill and shoot 12 under. And then on Sunday, if you shoot 4 under, that might be the hot score. Like, you can do that. You can adjust. Also, I would love to see it with the weather and all that. But when it comes to it, I love 4-day events way more. There's a cut involved that affects players at the bottom level. The Disc Golf Pro Tour doesn't do a great job of like showing that right now. Again, that's a lot of with resources, but that also is a storyline that you can get people to draw in earlier in the broadcast and not just at the end.
I desperately want to see an event where a course plays drastically different on 2 different days. I think it would blow people's minds. Like, disc golfers just wouldn't understand. Like, what do you mean the hot round was?
There would be a
5
lot of
shots
tears.
worse?
There'd be
Like,
a lot of tears.
It would be, yeah. It would
Everyone would be
great.
like, it must have been so windy that day.
Exactly. Well, that's what my first thought would be. I'd be like, oh, the wind was up. Hunter, what do you think about the plus events? Are they doing much?
Well, I think yes, not because they're a plus event, but because what the plus event makes the Pro Tour do, which is, as Mike brought up, go to 2 courses, because the plus events do require 2 courses. The reason we actually saw Waco lose its plus event status was the Lake Waco golf course came under new ownership and they weren't so crazy about disc golf. So it lost it, opened Austin, got it. So they do require 2 courses across the 4 days, which I think that's a plus as a viewer. You get a bonus day of golf, plus as a viewer. Cut line, big plus as a viewer. The Disc Golf Network is actually making an effort to make this more of a storyline. We saw several times during coverage where they would cut and be like, this putt is to make the cut. And props to, I believe it was Bo McLaughlin, Robbie's friend, who absolutely banged like a 50-some footer to make the cut.
Yeah.
Electric
Big
on
shout
coverage.
out there.
Then they also had the shot of like Simon Lizotte just has to make, I think he's had to make a par on 18 to make the cut. Turns out must not happen. So I like that storyline as well. I wish the cut was after day 2 instead of after day 3, but
Yep.
I get where disc golf is right now. That's fine. But I do think that the biggest benefit in this is the 2 courses, because I think that it makes stuff just challenge players from different aspects. Majors are always going to be more prestigious because they're majors. Golf doesn't struggle with the Masters not being as prestigious because every event's 4 rounds. In disc golf, we currently feel that way just because week in and week out we're playing 3-round events. And then what has set the majors apart a lot of times is the 4 rounds. But I think as disc golf transitions into hopefully a more 4-round dominant sport, then I think the majors will be, the majors because of, well, the title, and more so than just, oh, it's 4 rounds now. There's more golf.
Right. Okay. All right, Hannah, wrap it up for us. What do you think about the plus events and their effect?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with everyone's take of, I don't necessarily know what the label of the plus event does, but I absolutely love 4-round tournaments. Give me every tournament as 4 rounds. As a fan, I want to watch it all. But I think the biggest thing that they do well is they expose so much more disc golf, and in a lot of cases of the plus events where there are multiple courses, they expose a lot of different courses and shots to the players, to the viewers, to spectators. But also, as a 4-day event, they allow an extra day for more spectators to come out. Like, maybe you can't make Thursday, or maybe you can't make Friday, so you take Thursday off and you come out for the MPO, or you have the morning free, so you go to see FPO. Like, it allows some more variety there, but it also allows for any type of vending or ad revenue or any promotion for the players or for the companies. It gives them an extra day to push that to whoever's watching DGN, who's ever watching Jomez, whoever shows up to buy a ticket and spectate in person. And so as a fan, I love having all the extra disc golf. I don't know if the plus title really does much, but except for the points, which is a bonus. But to me, there's so many benefits to having a 4-round tournament.
Yeah. I've always considered it more of a passive thing, where it is less about, because I think this is the way that it should have been interpreted on the PGA Tour as well, where it really shouldn't be about the name plus. It's really just passively what the Pro Tour has to do, and what they're pledging almost to the audience, which is, and the players, like, right, to the players, we're pledging a little bit more money. To the audience, we're pledging a little bit more golf, and probably more players will show up for these events. Like, that's really what it's about.
Well, that's what, sorry, not to steal Brodie's thunder, but that's what the Pro Tour tried to pitch it as, because I think that's what golf, like, it's like, oh, at these events, the field's going to be full. That's what the Pro Tour tried to pitch it as.
Yes.
But then we saw people skipping plus events left and right, so it didn't really work out.
No, I was going to say, if this is a good take, push me through to break the tiebreaker. If it's not, If it's not, take me out. If you have 4+ events and the weather is trash, it's still a 3 tournament day versus when you have those 3 tournament rounds and one day is weather's terrible, like a 2-day tournament, like is normally very, very weird.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just a common sense take. I don't really think that's a very hot
no,
take.
Brodie, the weather man,
It's not a bad take, but like I think it's just common sense.
I was just saying, people aren't thinking, but no one said it.
That is true. I never thought of
you
it.
You said it.
Hunter never thought of it.
Well, all right. 3-person tiebreaker. Here it is. Whoever can get the closest to the finishing position of Kale LaVisca at the Open at Austin is going to move on to take on Hunter. Throw out your guesses at any particular order.
8th.
Oh,
He played good?
At one point, he was up there.
She's tipping everybody off a little
thank
bit.
you. All right, give me 42. I was gonna go like 80.
42nd?
Yeah, I was gonna go like 80.
Mike, you're muted.
Mike, you're muted. Mike said he came in dead last.
I remember him them saying he got top 20, but I don't remember if that was this week or last week.
Ooh.
So
last
I'll
week.
split the
Wait,
difference and I'll do 22nd.
14th place.
Oh, Hannah.
Do
Hannah
your
is
math.
moving on.
Okay.
Hannah's
Wow.
informed.
Kale
Hannah's
LaVisca
informed.
is kind of nasty.
Kale is kind of dirty.
Dr.
Like,
Kind of nasty.
yeah,
Hey, the
he's just,
undefeated blue potential lives on.
all right. I'm excited
We'll
about
see.
this matchup
That was
here.
a bias right there.
All right. Hannah and Hunter, 2 H's. Hunter, would you like to go first or second?
I'd like to go first, mainly because I think I got to take one.
Okay.
I don't want to be the follow up on it.
All right. Here's our finals topic. We've done a Mount Rushmore before, but this time we're making it a little more fun, a little more recent. So if you were to create a Mount Rushmore of disc golf, but you only have knowledge of the sport from 2020 and beyond, which 4 players would you choose? So we've done the history, like all of disc golf Mount Rushmore, but now it's like, what if you just stepped into COVID and that's all you ever knew? Hunter, what do you think?
Oh, this is tough because obviously when we're talking players, there's a few that are no-brainers, right? So let's start with the 2 no-brainers. First and foremost, Mrs. Kristen Lott. You got it. I mean, this is her most dominant stretch. She has one of the greatest seasons of all time. In this era of 2020 and beyond, she's the only player to Grand Slam. Sorry, Paul, yours is now gone from the history books. So you got to take Kristen Lott. She, I think, is clearly the first person on the Mount Rushmore. She'd probably end up on the Mount Rushmore of disc golf anyways as time plays out. So I think that's fair to go here. Secondly, you got to take the modern day GOAT of Gannon Buhr. He had a season that rivals any season in disc golf history, period. But definitely you go 2020 and beyond. The dude's won majors. He's won every tournament under the sun. And I think it's safe to say 2020 to 2025, he is the current MPO GOAT. We have Gannon Buhr. The next 2 is where things get interesting. And, I think as soon as we think 2020 and beyond, and we're talking influence and we're talking accomplishments, there's only one player that comes to mind. James Conrad has to go on the Mount Rushmore with the holy shot 2021. Wow. Has there been a more influential or big moment in disc golf? I mean, you can't make that face. It got us onto so many podcasts. It got in 2021. I think that moment got overlooked for how much it did for the sport and the mainstream push of disc golf during the COVID boom. You can't put money on the type of exposure the holy shot got us as a sport. Not to mention, he also won one of only 5 world titles that's up for grabs in the 2020 to 2025 era. So when we're looking at it from that perspective, we do have to take the final player who got 2 of the other remaining world championships. You have to go with Isaac Robinson. He's won 2 worlds in this era, and he won another major with the Champions Cup. Whether or not the rest of the seasons haven't been as good as they could have been, sure. But if we're looking at 2020 to 2025, and you got someone who's won 3 majors in a 2-year window during that, I think he would be my final pick for the Mount Rushmore.
Okay. Fair picks. Hannah, what do you got?
Well, I'm glad now that I stayed away from Gannon Buhr and James Conrad and went a different direction because I figured that would happen. I wanted to focus on major winners, but also people who had so much influence beyond the course and a few people who have exceptional skills that just way outweigh their peers. So I'm going to start off with Paul Macbeth. Hear me out. In this time frame, he has 8 wins on tour, 2 of them being 2022 Worlds and 2021 USDGC. He signed his 10-year, 10 mil extension, which was picked up by some mainstream articles and news outlets and garnered a lot of attention there. Between his foundation, his businesses that he is now has ownership in, the courses he's designed, he has so much influence throughout the disc golf space across the world. Not to mention the Euro tour that he went on that they filmed for Jomez, and it brought a lot of notoriety to those events. My second pick, same as Hunter, I've got to go with Kristen Lott. There's nobody else who's been as influential, I think, that's a disc golfer, but also has influence outside the sport than she has, even compared to Paul and Ricky or whoever else historically. She has gotten the celebrity status in Estonia, which has led to so many outside sponsorships. And she was in a Nike ad, for crying out loud. Like, who else can say they've done that in the disc golf world? Not to mention, she had the Grand Slam. She has 6 total major wins in that, 2 of them being world titles. She has cemented herself as the GOAT, especially of this time period. And bonus, she was second in World Games Athlete of the Year voting. Next, I'm going with a little bit of a risky one. We're going with Evelina Salonen, who is possibly one of the best FPO throwers of all time. She has 2 major wins, one being a world title. And sure, she struggles with putting, but we don't tell people who can't throw far or who don't have a forehand to go see a sports psychologist. Some people say her success with poor putting has sad reflection on the rest of the FPO field, but I think it's still super impressive. My last one was Isaac Robinson for the same reason. He had the 2 world titles, and he's just so incredibly good and been overlooked recently, despite being a 3-time major winner in that time.
All right, few points. First of all, the James Conrad pick is fair, but I will say he has stunk the last few years. Like probably the last 3 seasons, he's stunk.
Best
so
shot
like
ever.
that
Holy
can't be
shot.
overlooked.
Holy
Like
shot.
he's definitely not a
You're the one that
no-brainer.
set the time range.
Do you see that clip of Wilt Chamberlain?
What? I don't even know what that's supposed to mean.
Look it up.
Point 2, the Paul thing. I actually think the pick is fine because though the 10-year extension thing is kind of cheeky because it's like that's related to his prior performance. It did happen, so
Yeah.
I respect that pick because if that qualifies, which like in a weird way it kind of has to, that was a very
But if your
Well,
mindset is from 2020 and beyond, that's the most confusing contract of all time.
Still happened though. Still
It did.
happened. Evelina Salonen, I'm sorry. That's just not gonna listen. You
That's fair.
can't.
I can feel the trophy,
But
dropping down in my lap when the Evelina came
I
out.
do respect going for it and going for the risky play. You have to when you're going second. You have to go for the risky play, and you never know. The only one that you guys didn't name that I think could have been named was potentially Simon Lizotte, just because of
I
how
thought of him.
his
Yeah.
influence. I think I would have given some points for that, and then
Did
Yeah,
neither
maybe
person
Calvin.
pick Ricky?
you could argue
Did neither person
Rick,
pick
even-
Ricky?
No,
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
Rick.
no majors, man.
No majors is
Yeah.
tough. No majors
Not
is
Ricky
tough.
in the past
He has
5
the most
years.
wins by a lot.
Yeah.
I could see
He's
you
most wins
taking
by a
off.
lot.
I could see you taking off James for Ricky, but the holy shot is the holy shot.
I thought
Yeah.
about taking off James or Isaac for Simon just because of the YouTube influence and all
Yeah.
that, but I was like, but the dude
Back
won
to
3
back?
majors.
He's got the race.
It's
And the
the
back-to-back
world titles. Yeah.
Recency
Yeah.
bias right now. Yeah.
Yep.
Let us know in the comments who you would put in your Mount Rushmore. I think there's a lot of interesting ways to think about it when you're going from such a recent era and you've taken out a lot of the people that probably would have been on that list. But that'll do it for today's episode. Hunter is our champ. You can vote and decide if you agree. You know, he's still undefeated in the orange spot. Hasn't
No.
lost there.
I'm not. I lost last week in the orange
Oh, that's
spot.
right.
The
And then
blue
you won
spot
the
was
poll.
mine. Yeah, the blue
So-
spot was mine.
Maybe I just won't put you on the poll, and then the people who really watch the show will have to DM us and be like, Hunter's my vote. They'll just have to do it manually. Try and work out the bias. But yeah, that was another episode of Debate Night. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you want to submit
This is
topics,
a good way to test the bias. Put Connor on the poll.
yeah, that'll test the bias really
Throw
quick.
Connor in there. If Connor wins, we know.
I'm just gonna put like just random celebrity names on the poll and just see what's going on. You can scan the QR code on the screen if you want to submit topics for next week's episode. Bring in some more topic submissions. We're not getting enough this year, so bring in some more. I want to bring more topics onto the show, but we're not getting a ton. So throw in those topics. I don't ask Chat GPT to do them. I don't care. Just get them to me so I can evaluate them.
Not a bad idea.
Make sure to vote if you thought Hunter deserved the win or if you thought Hannah got robbed or someone else even. And we'll see you next week.